We had 12 chat rooms running simultaneously, with delegates able to visit any 5 of their choice during the sessions, which each lasted for 30 minutes. The sound quality of some of these sessions is not great, so apologies in advance.
I'm Jen. I'm a ranger for National Parks, and I've only recently taken over the management of Big Island. The previous ranger was in the role for 5 years, and she's moved on to another role, and she was meant to be here but wasn't able to come. Ben?
Hi. My name's Ben Coddington. So my involvement in this project was with the Illawarra Aboriginal Land Council. And they've got a Aboriginal bush regen team named Berrim Nuru, which provides employment while caring for country for Aboriginal community. And so before we get too far, let's tell them about Big Island basics.
The basics? Alright, so Big Island is part of the 5 Islands group. Big Island is the biggest of the islands, and it's located off Port Kembla, so you can see it quite close to the coast. And the Aboriginal name for it is Buriadong. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes, well, I wouldn't know, but
yeah, Buriadong.
That's what we're told.
Yeah, so it has Aboriginal connections there. There's middens on the island. They found stone artefacts, so it was a time when sea level was lower. They frequent the island, so there is cultural connections to the place. It's a very valuable seabird habitat, so there's burrowing birds that burrow on the island. There's the shearwaters, storm petrels, little penguins.
And there's pelicans?
Baby ibis, very cute.
And
the anytime they're cute. And they're gorgeous.
And about, tens of thousands of seagulls also. Can't forget them.
Yeah, very pretty eggs.
Pretty eggs, but not so pretty when you get near them. So, that's the basics. But I was going to say, it's a big collaboration. This project. We haven't told you that it's about the weed issues, but we will in a moment. But the project itself, we can't talk about it really without talking about some of the groups involved, because it really is a really great collaboration. So I'll definitely forget one or two, but of course National Parks kicked this off, but they got funding through going for grant applications for Aboriginal projects, and the perfect fit was to work with Berrim Nuru. So that was the initial back in 2014 when we got working out on the island. And then other groups involved were Minnow Wildflower Group, Lloyd Hedges, who's somewhere here. Yeah, we know Lloyd. I thought we might see him here. He's somewhere at the conference. And they grew a lot of the plants, a lot of the lamandras in particular for this project. And we'll get to that, thousands and thousands of plants for it. As well as Jamboree Native Nursery, but they did a lot of volunteer work on that. Then there's the Friends of 5 Islands, who's basically a volunteer group that get involved, so it's a big volunteer effort. And then there's also a steering committee of volunteers, which are your top level scientists involved, including Dr. Kevin Mills, who's currently speaking somewhere here, Nicholas Carlisle and others. So Illawarra Land is the other one I should give a mention to, the youth group that they run. So anyway, so it's a real collaboration, and it will continue to be. So back to Jen. You can tell us what the issues are out there.
So the biggest issue on the island is the invasion of kikuyu and coastal morning glory. The reason these are so bad is because a lot of the birds on the island, they're burrowing birds, and so they do need access to sand and dirt to build their burrows. And when you've got all of this kikuyu, which is over your knees, it completely smothers everything, and it makes it really difficult for them to burrow. And so that's one of the biggest challenges, is trying to keep this under control. We've got the map over there with the areas that we work on, area 1 and 2, which is what's got the best established natives, and so we're just working on trying to re-establish that area. And then there's areas in 6 and 3 where there's no nesting burrowing sites, and so there are the smaller areas that we've worked on to try and get the kikuyu down. That's the main weed concerns.
But you don't think of kikuyu as being such a full-on weed, but it really is out there. Like decades of growth, and the soil it's sand, but it's also fertilised with however long eons of bird poop, right? And we're talking tens of thousands of birds, and it's the most beautiful veggie mix you can imagine. And the kike's that deep, but I think the roots and the layer underneath all those stolons are probably something similar. So while it disappears on top with a spray, it just comes back and back and back. So, which we'll get to. There's other coastal morning glory is another real full-on rapid moving weed up here, and mirror bush as well. They're our real nasty, aren't they?
Yeah. So with the mirror bush though, so we've got the ibis. That's what they nest in. So with the mirror bush, it's something that you don't want to completely eliminate because there is ibis nesting in those, but it's just about stopping the encroachment onto the rest of the island and managing what's there.
Yeah. A little tale I didn't tell you before, I don't think. But here, all this mirror bush, you can sort of see it on the aerial. We put a remote sensor camera under one of those bushes. We could see a trail leading up, and it was obviously the penguins were using it underneath it. And then the seas were so rough we couldn't get out there for weeks and weeks, like 8 weeks. So I got months worth of footage of penguins doing it. I just set the camera up right where they were going for it, and I saw just so many shots. I shared them with the kids of penguins just going for it. It was obviously the main spot. So there you go, the mirror bush, which poses another problem because you can't just get rid of the mirror bush.
Yeah, that's it. It's too valuable. So you come to this island, because I came to this island originally with a bush regen background, and I looked at the island in a bush regen way. The next time I went back there was with Nicholas Carlisle, a bird scientist, and I looked at the island completely different because you realise it's not just a big regen project. It's like habitat restoration, and that's the primary reason we're going there. So you just can't. So it's really gaps. It used to be grazed, I think. So, did they have farming
it's been
in there?
Grazed, it's had fire, burning.
And I think they put it to stabilise because they got it. It was right down to dirt and sand, and so they put the kikuyu out to stabilise.
Well, rabbits as well. They had a bad rabbit. It's called Rabbit Island sometimes by locals, and it got all the vegetation stripped off from rabbits at one point as well. And that's when they went. Kikuyu is a great idea to keep the soil on the island. So
it's doing the job. The soil's still there, but now we're just trying to manage the kikuyu.
That approximate 1 hectare patch was aerial sprayed with National Parks chopper with glyphosate to bring the kikuyu down to something like that. That would be the second spray, I think, if it was 2017. So they actually did 2 runs. The first one, they didn't have a bush regen crew organised yet, and it came back so much they did a second spray. But we got out there before the second spray so that we could there was a lot of natural regeneration happening on the island. Not your typical mainland type regen, but Commelina, Cyanea, native wandering Jew, or wandering sailor, which is not something normally to get really excited about, but on an island like this it was. And the patches were kind of rivaling the size of this room, and Tetragonia, the native spinach, and again in similar scale patches. Both those plants died back a bit after a few years, and they come and go. But they were real allies because there was such vast areas to maintain, and they did hold the weeds out over time. And then planting, I might throw to you for the planting because you've got the planting stats there. Then we basically, it was a re-veg project as well as any regen we could get.
So there was huge planting efforts made. So we're talking thousands and thousands, in total 18,000 Lamandra. And so the areas 1 and 2 planted out, and then it ended up extending into the other areas. And the problem that then happened was that there was a huge effort to re-veg, and then I think there was the fire season, which meant that park staff were no longer available. Then we had COVID, which meant that there was no more boat operations and no more works happening. Then we've had this year has been a complete write-off with weather, and so when we've come out there, pretty much areas in 5 and 6 that were planted, they're just, the plants are not really there anymore. There's just been overtaken by the kikuyu and morning glory.
Well, they'll be there underneath.
There's lumps, so you go out there and you just see these lumps, and I'm pulling back, so some are still coping, but it was one of those things where that you expected to be able to follow up. You have to do this mass planning and follow up with it, and the follow-up just ended up not being able to happen. But the good news is in areas 1 and 2, they actually are doing really well, because that wasn't as bad as the other areas. So you've got like real big lamandras that have grown. We've got banksias that are growing quite well.
Why so many lamandras is a good question, because Jen and I both have a bush regen background and imagined coast banksias and tea trees, perhaps, coastal wattle, restringers. Some of those species made it into the mix, but a couple of reasons. So the shearwater burrows, they're quite interesting if you haven't seen them. They're as long as someone with a long arm, because the guys who survey for the shearwaters, get right down and get their arm right in the burrow to see if there's eggs or chicks or what's going on. So they're long and they run on an angle. So imagining all this sandy soil with this long tunnel that the birds are surviving in the bottom of, it collapses. And the lamandra's just got the perfect root system to bind it, as well as creating perfect habitat for the penguins, which sometimes will burrow or use a burrow, or when there's good enough foliage, they might just use the foliage as well. So the lamandra sort of suits both those purposes. But as well as that, island ecology is different to mainland, and we did do a trip to Montague Island with national parks, which is awesome. Got to do a tour out there, and they've done pretty much the same process for the same species, both penguins and the shearwaters, and like Montague, there's seals on both islands as well. So quite a lot of similarities. But yeah, when you do the boat tour around that, you see that the remnant areas on Montague are just complete 100% lamandra cover. They haven't got those other species, and it's obviously what handles that extreme exposure. So
It's a strong part of that habitat.
yeah. Having said that, we do have some coast banksias out there, and Myoporum, which strangely have done really well and then died back for some reason. Perhaps they drowned.
Only recently, yeah. So I went there, I've gone a couple of times in the first half of the year. Myoporum doing amazingly well, and then the last visit I had was 2 weeks ago, and I'm not sure if you can see in this picture, it's just all started dying off, and we think it's because of the amount of like waterlog in the soil, because there's been so much rain, and there's actually swampy sections that are starting to happen on the island, and there's even like signs of like little creek systems that have never been there before. Like you can see the erosion of where creeks have formed, and that's the Nicholas Carlo, the bird scientist. He's been going to this island for so long, and he said he's never seen creeks forming on the island. So that's an indication of how much we know how much rain there's been. So, but this is how it's affecting some of these plants.
Yeah. So I think you were getting onto that main challenge of having sort of taken on this large area. And in bush regen, it's always a golden rule that you just can't bite off more than you can chew, or open up more canopy. Often in different sites, it's not so much canopy here, but open up more area than you can maintain in one time. And any bush regen story is going to come back to this golden rule, but I think really it was the challenges that you mentioned, that
there's so many
COVID and the craziest fire season ever, which took national parks all out.
Yeah, all staff they were deployed the whole time, so that stopped any projects.
Just canned the whole thing.
Yeah.
So we always thought of it as a 20-year project, and it's been going, I think, 7 years now. But then there's probably been a few steps forward and a few steps back. It's not done yet, is it? So it's not time to...
Yeah, but it's better than when it started. So like looking at the photos from the beginning, it's definitely improved. We've got some really good established plants and species, and and we're still got the momentum.
Effort,
getting to the island is another challenge. Is it like so you've got to land on this beach. You pretty much have to drive the rubber ducky up on the beach itself. But as you're coming up, there's waves crashing sideways. So you've got to have a skilled boat operator who can read the water and knows the right time to go out. Then to get back out, you've got to have people off the boat, pushing the boat back out, launching into the boat,
water, pushing it through the waves,
while someone's like manoeuvring the motor. And so it's a pretty gnarly trip there and back. Another option that we've had is that we've gone out a couple of times on helicopter. So we've actually found a nice patch of morning glory that we brush cut down and sprayed. So we've got a landing pad. So stuff will come out, but to go out on a helicopter, realistically, we need a full team. Like we need 6 staff to make it worthwhile. And with everything that's going on at the moment in national parks, all of our field staff are just completely flat out with all their other projects of fixing up landslide remediation works and fire trails. So that's been quite hard to get a helicopter load of staff out to the island. The good thing we have is that there's a environmental services company called Boants, and so they actually have bought a boat specifically for this job, and they've got it under a scientific license so that they can go out there. And so we've now contracted them, who are going to be able to start going out to the island without national parks needing to be there as well, so that way they can be self-managed and get out there. We're also in the process of applying for a grant through the Port Penfolds Community Investment Fund with the local Aboriginal Land Council, and so they'll also be joining in on Boants, so Boants will be able to get them out to the island on the boat, and so hopefully we'll have some more funding to keep moving forward and getting work done. So it's
another small challenge
positive.
that wasn't mentioned up until now, funding.
Funding.
Whole thing's grant funded.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, so National Parks
on the next.
doesn't have a whole lot of funding for the island, and so everything does rely on us applying for grants and applying for funding. And
we are seeing some really positive results in those areas 1 and 2, especially. It's exciting to go there and you're amongst native plants, all around you, and they are out competing the weeds, whilst there'll always be some maintenance, I think. So, and then that's their key areas where the burrows are, and the shearwater numbers have increased, the burrowing numbers have increased since the works have begun, so it's showing to be working.
If you enjoyed this presentation, then please subscribe to our channel. Other presentations from the conference are available in this playlist, with new ones being added all the time.